My name is Theodosia, and I'm 27 years old. I always believed family loyalty was sacred until mine betrayed me in the worst possible way. Before my parents divorced and my father remarried, we were happy. My stepsister Amanda seemed nice at first, until she and my boyfriend Jackson shattered that illusion. The most painful part, my parents actually encouraged their affair. That's why I fled to North Carolina, where life took an unexpected turn when I met Ethan, who happened to be Jackson's former boss. If you're watching this story, let me know where you're viewing from, hit that like and subscribe button, and prepare yourself for what happens when toxic family members think they can control your love life. I grew up in Boston in what I'd call a perfectly ordinary middle-class family. My childhood home was a cozy 3-bedroom house with blue shutters in a quiet neighborhood. Dad worked as an accountant, while Mum taught kindergarten at the local elementary school. We weren't wealthy, but we never lacked anything important. My parents, David and Marie, were high school sweethearts who married right after college. For 16 years, I witnessed what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. We took summer vacations to Cape Cod, had Sunday dinners together, and genuinely enjoyed each other's company. I was their only child, so I received plenty of attention and love. Then everything changed during my junior year of high school. I came home from swim practice one afternoon to find Mom crying at the kitchen table. Dad had asked for a divorce. He claimed they had grown apart and wanted different things from life. I later discovered he had been having an affair with Stephanie, a wealthy widow he met through a client. The divorce hit Mum hard. She developed depression that required medication and therapy. I became her support system while trying to navigate my own feelings of abandonment and confusion. Some days I'd find her still in bed when I returned from school, curtains drawn, unwilling to face the world. Those were the hardest times, sitting on the edge of her bed, coaxing her to eat something, anything. Dad moved out immediately, and within 6 months had married Stephanie. Their wedding was an elaborate affair at a country club, something completely unlike the modest lifestyle we'd lived. I attended out of obligation, feeling like a stranger in the lavish surroundings. That's where I first met Amanda, my new stepsister. Amanda was 25, just 2 years younger than me. With her honey blonde hair, designer clothes, and seemingly sweet personality, she made a positive first impression. She hugged me warmly and said she was excited to have a sister after being an only child. I wanted to believe her, needed to believe someone in this new arrangement was genuine, but subtle signs of competition emerged almost immediately. If I mentioned a book I enjoyed, Amanda had read something more intellectual. If I talked about my swim team achievements, she casually mentioned her equestrian trophies. Every accomplishment of mine seemed to trigger a greater one from her. Still, I tried to maintain a cordial relationship, attributing her behavior to adjustment difficulties. After graduating high school, I attended Boston University studying graphic design. College provided a welcome escape from the tension at home. I threw myself into my studies, made new friends, and discovered my passion for visual storytelling. During those 4 years, I maintained regular contact with Mum, whose condition gradually improved as she built an independent life. I saw Dad and his new family only during major holidays and occasional dinners. After graduation, I moved back home with Mum temporarily. She had developed fibromyalgia alongside her depression, and the combination of physical and emotional pain sometimes made daily tasks challenging. I found a job at a prestigious marketing firm in downtown Boston, allowing me to support Mum while building my career. 8 months into my new job, the company sent me to a marketing conference in New York. That's where I met Jackson. He was 26, worked for a competing firm in Boston, and had the kind of confidence that immediately drew people to him. Tall with dark hair and green eyes, he was undeniably handsome, but it was his passionate approach to creative work that truly attracted me. We exchanged business cards, and to my surprise, he called me the very next day. Our first date was at an art gallery featuring local photographers. Our second was a cozy dinner where hours passed like minutes. Within weeks, we were officially a couple, and for the first time since my parents' divorce, I felt truly happy. Our relationship progressed steadily over the next 2 years. We talked about moving in together, even mentioned marriage as a future possibility. Jackson met Mum, and they got along wonderfully. He would bring her favorite pastries when visiting and genuinely listened when she talked about her health struggles. Looking back, there were warning signs I ignored. Jackson occasionally cancelled plans last minute. He was protective of his phone. He sometimes made comments about my clothes or friends that made me slightly uncomfortable, but I dismissed these moments, focusing instead on the good times and my growing feelings. During this time, Amanda's interest in my life intensified. She texted regularly, asking about my job, my apartment search, and especially about Jackson. At first, I appreciated what seemed like genuine interest from a family member. When I mentioned Jackson's name, though, her questions became more specific. What firm did he work for? What was his position? Did he have advancement opportunities? I attributed her curiosity to professional interest, as she had recently completed a business degree. Dad and Stephanie frequently organized family gatherings where Amanda was always present. I noticed Dad's behavior with us was strikingly different. He praised Amanda effusively for the smallest achievements, while acknowledging my professional successes with only passing comments. When Amanda purchased her first car with money from her trust fund, Dad celebrated with champagne. When I received a promotion after months of overtime work, he simply said, "That's nice, honey." During Thanksgiving of our second year together, I brought Jackson to meet Dad, Stephanie, and Amanda. The dinner started pleasantly enough. Jackson charmed everyone with stories from the marketing world and complimented Stephanie's elaborate meal. But I couldn't help noticing the way Amanda watched him laughing too enthusiastically at his jokes touching his arm during conversation. More concerning was how Jackson responded, maintaining eye contact with her, slightly too long smiling in a way I recognized as his flirtatious expression. On the drive home, I mentioned these observations to Jackson. He dismissed my concerns, calling me paranoid and insecure. Wanting to believe him, wanting to preserve the happiness I'd found, I pushed my doubts aside. That decision would soon prove to be my greatest regret. The first concrete sign of betrayal came about a month after that Thanksgiving dinner. Jackson had forgotten his phone when he went to take a shower at my apartment. A notification sound prompted me to glance at the screen, where I saw a message preview from someone saved simply as A. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again." My heart pounded as I waited for Jackson to finish his shower. When confronted, he claimed the message was from a male colleague named Alex regarding a successful client presentation. His explanation seemed plausible, and I wanted so badly to believe him that I accepted it despite my lingering doubts. In the weeks that followed, Jackson began working late more frequently. Our weekend plans often got rescheduled due to sudden work emergencies. We went from seeing each other almost daily to maybe 3 times a week. When I expressed concern about these changes, he accused me of not supporting his career ambitions. Meanwhile, Amanda's sudden interest in marketing raised red flags. During a family dinner in January, she casually mentioned specific details about a campaign Jackson was working on, information I hadn't shared with her. When I asked how she knew these details, she smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, I've been reading industry publications. It's fascinating stuff." Dad and Stephanie exchanged proud glances at Amanda's comment. "Amanda has always had a keen business mind," Dad said. "She's thinking about transitioning from finance to marketing, actually." "Maybe Jackson could give her some career advice," Stephanie suggested, looking directly at me. The expectation was clear, and refusing would make me appear petty. "I'm sure he wouldn't mind," I replied, though everything in me screamed that this was a terrible idea. During this period, Jackson became increasingly critical of me. My cooking wasn't as good as it used to be. My outfit choices weren't flattering. I worked too much or not ambitiously enough. The man who had once looked at me with admiration now seemed to find fault with everything I did. Desperate to salvage our relationship, I planned a romantic weekend getaway to a coastal bed and breakfast in February. For the first evening, Jackson seemed like his old self, attentive and affectionate. We walked along the winter beach, had a beautiful dinner, and reconnected physically for the first time in weeks. The next morning, everything fell apart. Jackson received a text during breakfast and immediately announced we needed to return to Boston for a work emergency. No explanation, no apology for cutting our special weekend short. I fought back tears during the silent 2-hour drive home. A week later, I needed to run errands, but my car wouldn't start. Amanda offered to loan me hers while she was at work. When I opened her glove compartment looking for parking change, I found Jackson's watch, the expensive one I had given him for our first anniversary. My blood ran cold. That evening, I called Amanda and asked about the watch, trying to keep my voice casual. She explained that Jackson had been mentoring her about the marketing industry and must have left it behind during one of their coffee meetings. She promised to return it to him. When I questioned Jackson, he confirmed Amanda's story but wouldn't meet my eyes. He claimed he hadn't mentioned these mentoring sessions because he knew I had irrational jealousy regarding Amanda. I called Mom, the only person I fully trusted, and shared my suspicions. "Trust your instincts, Theodosia," she said gently. "If something feels wrong, it probably is. You deserve someone who doesn't make you question their loyalty." When I mentioned my concerns to Dad during our monthly lunch, his reaction stunned me. "You've always been jealous of Amanda," he said dismissively. Ever since she became part of our family, you've competed with her. She's trying to improve herself professionally, and you're creating drama because you can't stand to see her succeed." His words cut deep. This man who had once been my champion now consistently took my stepsister's side. I left the restaurant feeling more alone than ever. That evening, I installed a security app that connected to cameras in my apartment. I told myself it was for general safety, but deep down, I knew exactly what I was looking for. 2 days later, while at work, my phone alerted me to movement in my apartment. The live feed showed Jackson entering, followed closely by Amanda. I rushed home, my hands shaking so badly I could barely drive safely. The 20-minute trip from my office to my apartment felt like hours. Part of me hoped there was an innocent explanation, that they were planning a surprise for me, or had some legitimate reason to be there together. But the knot in my stomach told me otherwise. When I unlocked my door, the apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I called out, "Jackson, is someone here?" No response. Then I heard it. A muffled giggle from my bedroom. I stood frozen in the hallway, knowing that opening that door would change everything. For one fleeting moment, I considered walking away, pretending I hadn't seen or heard anything. But I deserved the truth, no matter how painful. I pushed open the bedroom door to find Jackson and Amanda in my bed. My bed. The sheets I had carefully chosen the space that should have been sacred. They scrambled to cover themselves, but the image was already burned into my memory. "Theodosia," Jackson exclaimed, his face pale. We didn't plan." "Get out," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. "Both of you get dressed and get out of my apartment." Amanda didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. She gathered her clothes calmly, as if being caught in such a compromising position was merely an inconvenience. "We didn't want you to find out this way," she said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Jackson and I, we just couldn't help our feelings. These things happen." "These things happen," I repeated, incredulous. "Sleeping with your stepsister's boyfriend in her own bed happens. Planning and lying and sneaking around happens." Jackson was hastily pulling on his clothes. "If you had paid more attention to our relationship instead of working all the time, maybe this wouldn't have happened," he had the audacity to say. "Amanda appreciates me. She makes time for me." "How long?" I demanded. "How long has this been going on?" They exchanged glances. "Since Thanksgiving," Amanda finally admitted. "We connected that night. I know this hurts you, but when it's real love, you can't fight it." "Real love?" I laughed bitterly. "Real love doesn't start with betrayal. Get out before I call the police for trespassing." After they left, I collapsed on the living room floor, my entire body shaking with sobs. I felt violated, humiliated, and utterly broken. Everything I thought I knew about my relationship had been a lie. The future I had imagined with Jackson shattered into 1,000 painful shards. I called Mum, barely able to form coherent sentences through my tears. She arrived 30 minutes later, arms full of comfort food and overnight supplies. "I'm staying with you tonight," she said firmly, pulling me into a hug that felt like the only safe place in the world. The next morning, I called Dad. Despite everything, some childish part of me still expected my father to protect me, to be outraged on my behalf. I should have known better. "I heard about what happened," he said, before I could even explain. Amanda had already given him her version of events. "These situations are complicated, Theodosia. People don't always control who they fall in love with." "They were in my apartment, in my bed, Dad," I said, voice cracking. "This isn't about uncontrollable feelings. This is about respect and basic human decency." Amanda says it's been serious between them for months. "You and Jackson were having problems anyway, from what I understand." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So that justifies betrayal, that makes it okay." "I think everyone needs to calm down," Dad replied. "Stephanie and I are calling a family meeting tonight. We need to resolve this situation like adults." Like adults. As if the mature response to finding your boyfriend and stepsister in your bed was to sit down for a civilized discussion. Mum advised me not to go, but I needed to see just how far this betrayal extended. That evening, I arrived at Dad and Stephanie's house to find Jackson's car already in the driveway. The ambush was set. In the formal living room, Dad and Stephanie sat side by side on the sofa. Amanda perched on the armchair, Jackson standing awkwardly behind her. My heart stopped when I noticed Amanda was wearing the silver bracelet Jackson had given me for my birthday 4 months earlier. "Theodosia," Stephanie began with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We understand you're upset, but we need to find a way forward that works for everyone." "Works for everyone," I repeated, remaining standing despite Dad's gesture toward an empty chair. I'm not sure how that's possible given the circumstances. We all make mistakes, Dad said. Jackson and Amanda have expressed genuine remorse for how things happened. I looked at their faces and saw no such remorse. Amanda actually smirked slightly, her hand reaching back to touch Jackson's. What we're suggesting, Stephanie continued, is that you be mature about this situation. Amanda and Jackson have a real connection, and fighting against it will only cause more pain for everyone. Be mature, I echoed. You want me to just step aside and bless their relationship that began with cheating and lies. You had your chance with Jackson. Dad said, his words hitting me like physical blows. It didn't work out. Sometimes we need to gracefully accept when something isn't meant for us. Amanda nodded. I never wanted to hurt you, Theodosia, but Jackson and I are really happy together. As family, shouldn't you want us to be happy? Family doesn't betray family. I responded, my voice shaking. Honestly, sweetheart, Stephanie interjected, you must have known deep down that Jackson would eventually be drawn to Amanda. She's always been the prettier one, the more socially adept one. The room spun around me as the full weight of their betrayal sank in. This wasn't just about Jackson and Amanda's affair. This was about a family system that had consistently devalued me in favor of Amanda. This was about parents who should have protected me instead, encouraging my pain. There's one more thing, Dad said, his tone suddenly businesslike. Your mother's medical insurance comes through my company policy as part of our divorce settlement. If you continue to make this situation difficult, cause drama on social media, or refuse to accept Amanda and Jackson's relationship, I'll be forced to reconsider that arrangement. The threat hung in the air, calculated and cruel. They were using Mum's health as leverage to force my compliance. In that moment, something broke inside me, but something stronger was forged in its place. You would jeopardize Mom's health to protect Amanda's relationship with my cheating ex-boyfriend. I asked, my voice now deadly calm. Before Dad could respond, the front door opened. Mum walked in, her expression fierce despite her fragile physical state. I heard everything, she said. I was waiting in the car, hoping Theodosia wouldn't need me, but I had a feeling this would happen. She turned to Dad. You can cancel my insurance. I'll figure something out. But you will not use my health to manipulate our daughter. The room fell silent. Mum took my hand. Let's go, Theodosia. You don't need this toxicity in your life. As we left, I knew with absolute certainty that I couldn't stay in Boston. Every street, every restaurant, every office building would remind me of this betrayal. I needed to go somewhere new, somewhere far away from the people who had shown they valued their comfort over my dignity. The week after that devastating family meeting, I threw myself into researching job opportunities far from Boston. I applied for positions in Chicago, Seattle, Austin, and several cities in North Carolina, where a growing technology sector meant increased demand for marketing professionals. Mum supported my decision, though I could see the sadness in her eyes at the thought of me moving far away. You deserve a fresh start, sweetheart, she said, helping me scroll through apartment listings. Sometimes distance is the only way to heal. Within 3 weeks, I received an offer from a digital marketing firm based in Raleigh, North Carolina. The position allowed for remote work with occasional office days, offering flexibility and a substantial salary increase. It felt like the universe was finally giving me a break after months of heartache. I found an affordable one-bedroom apartment in Durham, not far from Duke University. The rental photos showed hardwood floors, large windows, and a small balcony perfect for morning coffee. The apartment complex had a pool and fitness center amenities that I hoped would help me build a new routine. Saying goodbye to Mum was the hardest part of leaving. We stood in the airport, both trying to be strong for each other. We'll video chat every Sunday, she promised, straightening my collar in that motherly way that suddenly made me feel like a child again. And I'll come visit once you're settled. You're the only real family I have left, I whispered, hugging her tightly. You'll build a new family, Theodosia, one that deserves you. Her words would prove prophetic, though I couldn't know that then. My first weeks in Durham were lonely. I'd wake up each morning in an unfamiliar apartment surrounded by boxes I had minimal motivation to unpack. I'd log onto my laptop for work, grateful for the distraction of professional responsibilities, then spend evenings staring at walls or mindlessly watching television shows I couldn't later recall. Gradually, though, I began to explore my new city. Durham surprised me with its vibrant downtown, excellent restaurants, and beautiful green spaces. I discovered the American Tobacco campus, with its renovated industrial buildings, now housing offices and eateries. I found a local coffee shop where the barista began preparing my usual order as soon as I walked in. Small comforts, but significant. On a Saturday morning, about a month after my move, I met Jasmine, my next-door neighbor, while checking my mail. She immediately invited me for brunch, insisting that I needed proper Southern hospitality after relocating from Boston. Over mimosas and chicken and waffles, she listened to a carefully edited version of why I had moved, then proceeded to invite me to a book club, a hiking group, and a community garden project. "People need people," she said simply when I expressed surprise at her instant inclusion. "And you look like someone who needs people right now." She wasn't wrong. I joined the hiking group first, finding that physical exertion in beautiful natural settings helped quiet the constant replay of betrayal in my mind. The Saturday morning hikes through the Eno River State Park became sacred time, a few hours when my body worked hard enough that my mind could rest. Still, healing wasn't linear. I'd have good days followed by nights when I'd wake up from nightmares, where I was repeatedly discovering Jackson and Amanda together. I'd check social media, despite promising myself I wouldn't then spiral after seeing photos of them, looking happy at restaurants we used to visit together. Amanda wore my bracelet in every picture, a detail that felt deliberately cruel. I started therapy meeting weekly with Dr. Preston, a compassionate woman who specialized in trauma and relationship issues. "What you experienced was a double betrayal," she explained during one session. "From your partner and from your family. That creates a particular kind of wound that takes time to heal." Jackson continued attempting to contact me, sending texts that oscillated between justifying his actions and expressing regret not for the affair, but for how I discovered it. "We could have handled this better. You deserved a proper conversation." One message read, as if finding out about their betrayal through a scheduled discussion would have somehow lessened the pain. Dad and Stephanie sent lavish care packages to my new address boxes filled with gourmet foods, expensive wines, and notes suggesting I come home soon and make peace with the new family dynamic. I donated the food to a local shelter and poured the wine down the drain. 6 months into my North Carolina life, I realized one morning that I had slept through the night without nightmares. Small victory, but significant. My apartment finally felt like home, decorated with local art I'd discovered at Durham's monthly market. I had regular hiking friends, a favorite bakery, and growing confidence at work, where my designs had earned praise from senior leadership. That same week, our company announced that a new executive creative director would be joining the team, relocating from the New York office to lead our expanding southeastern operations. As one of the more established team members, I was assigned to help onboard him and show him around the Raleigh-Durham area. When I met Ethan Taylor for the first time, I felt no immediate attraction, just professional respect. At 34, he had an impressive portfolio and reputation in the industry. Tall with salt and pepper hair despite his relatively young age, he had a thoughtful demeanor and asked insightful questions about our current projects and team dynamics. "I'd like to have one-on-one meetings with each team member over the next 2 weeks, he explained during our initial meeting. "And I'd appreciate your insights on the local area as well, since you mentioned you moved here recently yourself." Over coffee the following day, I provided Ethan with recommendations for neighborhoods, restaurants, and cultural attractions. Our conversation drifted naturally from professional to personal when he mentioned enjoying art museums. "There's a great local gallery in downtown Durham," I told him. "They feature North Carolina artists and have new exhibitions monthly." "That sounds perfect," he replied with genuine interest. "I've been looking for art for my new place. Would you mind sending me the details?" We discovered other shared interests, including hiking and independent films. "The Carolina Theatre shows classic movies on Sunday afternoons," I mentioned. "They're doing a Hitchcock retrospective next month." "I haven't seen Rear Window on the big screen since college." Ethan said, his face lighting up. "Do you go often?" "When I can. I'm still discovering everything Durham has to offer." It was refreshing to have a conversation with a man that carried no undercurrent of flirtation or agenda, just authentic shared interests. I didn't realize then that Ethan